Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. In today's video, I'm going to be predicting the Paul versus Perry fight. And so if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Paul is 9-1 with 6 KOs. Perry is 9-8 in MMA with 8 KOs and no submissions. 5-0 in bare knuckle with 3 KOs and 0-1 in boxing. This fight is an 8-round fight in the cruiserweight division. Paul's last fight was a win via TKO in round 1 versus Borland, and Perry's last fight was a win via KO in round 1 versus Alves. Perry has been pro since 2014, and to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, like I said, Paul is gotten a bit of a decent tally to his name now, and he's been fighting relatively consistently. This is a return back to these unconventional type fights for him. He went away and had a couple fights against lesser boxing opponents as to seemingly build himself as a boxing brand and then be able to earn himself an actual eligible title shot from being able to beat other guys around him. But I think now he's realised that's not really where the money's at, and so now he's back fighting these MMA / bare knuckle type guys. Obviously he was meant to fight Mike Tyson, and that's now been put to November time, I believe, but Perry stepped in on somewhat short notice. I still believe he got quite a bit of notice, but like I say, somewhat short notice, and I think this is going to be a tricky fight. It's somebody in Perry who's just known to be a brawler and just so tough and just really put the pressure on, and Paul, to be honest, hasn't really faced anybody too similar to Perry. I mean, Diaz would probably arguably be the closest to that, just because he could take a good shot and he's really tough, but he's not putting on the same kind of level of pressure in which Perry is doing. But nonetheless, he's fought many of different types of opponents now, Paul, and he has struggled at times and he has succeeded at times, but now, like I said, it's a tough test. He may be overlooking him and thinking about the huge payday in which he'll get with Tyson, but I'm not really going to get into that fight too much because, I mean, I'll do a prediction for it when it gets round to it, but personally I don't really think that fight should be happening. Nonetheless, Perry is a kind of a jack of all trades in his career. I mean, obviously he's started out in MMA and didn't really get the best of records, but did fight in the UFC against some tough guys, and also had a little bit of a spell in boxing with that one fight, I believe, back in 2015 in which he lost, and I think he lost via stoppage as well. So boxing-wise, the credibility of him isn't too high, but recently, he's found his home in bare knuckle and BKFC, and 5-0, 3 KOs, looking dominant in any fight he's really been in, and fought some creditable guys. I mean, Venom Page, Luke Rockhold, of course Alves as well, Alvarez. So there's been some tough guys in there, and he's been able to make work of him and shown that BKFC is realistically where his sport is. Obviously now he's branching over to boxing because the huge payday he's going to be getting with this and the huge opportunity in which it is. But it's going to be interesting to see how he fares. Obviously they're both coming off at first round stoppages. It's only an 8-round fight though, and it's going to be interesting. Obviously Perry has the much more combat experience, but Paul has been progressing well. Also on this card though is Serrano vs Morgan, in which I think Serrano will win via unanimous decision. Serrano as well could also be overlooking Morgan as an opponent. She's meant to be fighting Taylor on the undercard of the Paul vs Tyson one. That would have been, of course, this card, but obviously that's been pushed back to that November time. So I respect her for wanting to keep fighting. I don't believe it's for her belts, that's why I've not mentioned the belts, but I think Morgan can be a tough opponent. She's coming off, I believe, 6 first-round knockouts, and obviously they are against much lesser opponents out in Colombia, I believe, but nonetheless, 6 first-round knockouts is not an easy feat, and Serrano is going to have a bit more of a tough test than perhaps she might be anticipating. Hopefully she's trained as hard as ever, but we'll have to wait and see. But I still believe she'll be able to rule it out and get a unanimous decision. Do I think she's going to be able to stop her? No. Will she probably have to weather an early storm? Yes, but I think she's more than capable of doing that. And if she doesn't, then it's a huge fight for her also gone out the window as well. So I respect her for wanting to keep active and for taking this fight, but like the Paul vs Perry one, there is a lot of risk involved. To speak about both the main event fighters as individuals, Paul He's got good timing and good power. I mean, in general, when you've seen any of his highlight reel type knockouts, they've been with well-timed, powerful shots. Obviously, you look back to the early times of the Nate Robinson one and the Ben Askren one and the Tyron Woodley one, and then you also look more recently against the Andre August knockout. Power, timing, put together, sitting down on the punches well, and in general can fight at a mid-range in close relatively comfortably. I'd say he does pick his shots well when he wants to. I think at a mid-range he's quite accurate, find his range well. I think he is becoming a bit more patient in his work and is improving, in my opinion, with every fight. I think he's wanting to push you back, he's wanting to hurt you, and he does hurt all of his opponents. And in general, he's a physically strong presence, and he's the more natural guy at this weight. And Perry coming up in weight is going to have to be able to deal with that, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can, because Perry is so used to being able to push you back with brute force. But if he can't do that and Paul doesn't allow that, then can Paul put Perry on the back foot where he's perhaps not as comfortable? We'll have to wait and see. The negatives about him, I think he has fought lesser opponents. Obviously, the time he kind of had the bigger step up was against Tommy Fury, in which he put out a very valiant effort, but of course he did lose. Then, other than that, if I'm looking at any of the bigger names opponents-wise, you probably have to say Nate Diaz or Anderson Silva, but neither of them are really kind of huge names. So, like I said, I do think he has fought the lesser opponents out of the two. I think he's not really too good at dealing with a physical presence, in which I believe, like I say, Perry's going to bring. Tyron Woodley bought in that second fight, and I think that did disrupt Paul's rhythm a bit. He has his chin in the air. I think he drops his guard. I think he can fight at a slow pace at times and can tire. He can smother in close and force to stoppage. I think, has his head on the line when he comes in. He has a bit of a lack of a defense. I don't think he's overly fast. I think he's not really often caring about what's coming back, and if he's not really caring about what's coming back against, when he wasn't doing that against the Borlands, I respect that, because of course he wants to go out there and get an early stoppage. But if he brings that mentality to go on to fight Perry, you're going to have to care about what's coming back. You don't want to respect him too much, but I feel like there has to be a bit of an element of respect there. He's been fluctuating in weight. Like I said, I feel like he is the more natural at the weights, but he has been fluctuating. Obviously, he went all the way up in preparations to fight Tyson, and that was a big weight jump. And he has been, like I say, going up and down in weight a little bit. And cruiserweight seemingly where he's kind of settling the most. But with that going up so much in weight for the Tyson one, will that play a factor? He might be overlooking him. He does overcommit, and I think his accuracy in close really isn't that impressive. And some of the shots in which, when he was trying to get Borland out of there, was messy, was, like I say, overcommitting, just wafting shots for the sake of it, and just not landing at all when he's doing that. And yeah, that wasn't so clean. I think Perry in close is the better fighter. Perry as a fighter, though, I mean, in general, one word to describe him would be a brawler. He is a certified brawler. That is the category in which I would put him in. I feel like that's a category in which I think everybody would put him in. He's tough, aggressive, pressure, come forwards, wants to overwhelm, and in general is a really tough kind of entity. But he also has a good work rate and doesn't really smother his work. He can outwork you. He's, like I say, the more experienced out of the two, and I think the experience could play dividends. Experience in multiple combat sports can really elevate your knowledge of the sport, and I don't really think Perry's the most smartest of fighters, but I think his smartness could be underrated, and we'll have to wait and see if he can show that or not. He throws from all angles, pretty much just unloads everything. In close, like I say, I think he's his best and has that momentum with him, like I say, more so than he ever has in his career before, and that's the only reason why he's got this opportunity here. He's not afraid of anything that's coming back, and like I say, I don't believe Paul is either, but Perry's proven that he can take the shot, and Paul has been hurt a little bit, I think, in the past against Tyron Woodley. Perhaps he was hurt, so maybe Perry has the better chin. I would probably say Perry does have the better chin, even though we don't know too much about Paul's chin, just because of how durable Perry is. Negatives about Perry, I mean, defensive-wise, he stands straight on, he's there to be hit, he rushes in, I think he's the slower out of the two, and is maybe not slowing down. He does have them explosive elements, but I think he's the slower out of the two, has a lack of a jab and doesn't really set up his shots at all. And boxing wise, yeah, that might work in BKFC, but boxing wise, that's not really the style you want. Accuracy can be a problem. He ducks his head down, he has his head on the line, so either one or the other, he'll duck it down or have it on the line. He's wild. Like I say, he's the smaller guy naturally, so he's definitely going to have to be punching up, which I don't believe he's not used to that, but smaller guy naturally, so he's going to have to, if he's going to try and rough up Paul and work the angles in which MMA fighters can often do when they come out of a clinch and then be able to throw, he's really going to have to emphasise his physical strength. He's been in wars, so obviously that can and does play a toll on everybody over time, just when that's going to catch up to him. Has quite an open guard, can perhaps be kept at a jab a little bit, and can be drawn into exchanges just a bit too long. Paul is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Paul will win via split decision. I can see this being a really close contest, and I don't believe Paul's going to be able to stop Perry. I think Perry's going to continue to come forwards. I think Paul's going to perhaps be able to land a cleaner boxing and then manoeuvre out the way. Hopefully that's what we see, but I do think that Perry will have success in rounds where he's going to be roughing up Paul and winning, and perhaps early on doing that, and then like I say, Paul I think can use his boxing into the later rounds and then be able to find success like that. But split decision win. Do I think there'll be a rematch? No. I think he's set on fighting Tyson. No matter what, I think, like I said, this is going to be, in my opinion, a disappointing performance and not really create loads of excitement ahead of the Mike Tyson fight. But I don't think there's anything that's stopping that fight from happening if Paul wins. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you enjoy. Like if you need like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.